Bonjour à tous. Hi, everyone. And welcome everyone to our last conference of the day presented by Michael Wolfson, Senior Advisor Food and Beverage at the City of Toronto. The topic of today is food incubators, what you should know before utilizing these facilities. Having assisted the successful launch of the Toronto Food Business Incubator pilot project, expanded that program to a larger production facility renamed Food Starter in 2015, Michael has studied food incubators across Canada. He has recruited dozens of clients over the years to join these spaces in Toronto. Moreover, Michael is also a food and beverage sector specialist for the City of Toronto Economic Development and has created a 40-year career out of his passion for culinary arts and business. For SIAL Canada, Michael jumped on the occasion to help us to launch and develop the very first startup village at SIAL Canada 2019, along with the very first pitch competition co-organized with Niagara College. But believe it or not, I am sure that next year back in Toronto, Michael will be still with us. Michael, I leave you the floor.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for that introduction. I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about the obstacles that food entrepreneurs have to getting into this industry. Startup food companies have a number of issues, primarily around the access of capital. So leasing food manufacturing spaces is very, very expensive. Typically, they're not available that often. And if you can find something, it's usually about 1,000 square feet of industrial space. And you have to make that food grade if you're going to produce food within your industrial unit. So they're, on average, the cost of developing a food grade space from a raw industrial space will run about $200 a square foot. So if you look at 1,000 square foot facility, you would need about $200,000 just to make that facility food grade. Very, very costly, and then you don't have any money to buy equipment or put in storage unit, refrigeration, freezer, whatever. Then the other piece is you have to purchase the equipment, and that's expensive. And you can buy used equipment, but sometimes that doesn't work all that great. And then the overall issue is a startup working on their own does not have access to the business knowledge that they require in order to get their business off the ground successfully. In the industry, it is said that about 75% of those businesses that do not work out of an incubator facility will usually fail within the 3 or 4 year period, just because they run out of money. That's simply the issue. So this is why we started to look at what we can do in the City of Toronto to assist to develop a food incubator. So as the population of Canada grows, because of immigration, more and more individuals coming to this country will want to establish food and beverage businesses similar to the foods that they ate and loved in their home countries. For the economy, this is why food incubators are essential for economic development. For the economy, every food and beverage job that's created in Canada creates an additional $120,347 in 2007 GDP dollars. So what does that mean? That means that if you are establishing a business that hires 10 employees, you are increasing the GDP by well over $1 million. So it's very essential for the country, for the province, and for the cities to ensure that this industry not only grows, but it thrives. And the infrastructure is the biggest hurdle to developing businesses in a very highly regulated industry. So the word incubator is used quite a bit by a number of different sectors. But when you call a facility a food incubator, it's very different because this is a very regulated industry and you have to follow certain health and safety guidelines within the facility in order to operate it as a food facility. So let's get into some definitions of what an incubator is and what an accelerator is, again, as it pertains to the food and beverage sector. So within the food and beverage sector, a food incubator is a large space that contains several commercial kitchen build-outs. It could be duplicated kitchen equipment that ensures that users have what they need when they need it. So when you rent a kitchen space, you want to know that you're going to be the only one using that particular space. You're going to pay a rental rate according to the amount of space that you're getting to use, and that you're going to be in a facility where there's going to be other people using other spaces, maybe beside you, and they also have to know that you're following certain guidelines and they're following certain guidelines. This is a community of entrepreneurs. There's benefits to that, and there's disadvantages to that. The benefits certainly are that you can share all kinds of information with each other. And that's a huge, huge benefit when you're starting a food business, because no one likes to start a business without the knowledge, without getting help, without being able to reach out to somebody. And colleagues that are in the same industry tend to share their successes and their failures readily with one another. So the other thing is that you'll get mentorship. So there are people within the industry that will come into the facility and will help you as they have succeeded. Most of these people are donating their time to assist the entrepreneurs within that special facility. Incubators and accelerators within the food context are not the same thing. Although both will support the guidance of startups, incubators are typically targeted to startup companies, while accelerators are targeted to people who have already started their business but are in a growth stage. So with regards to the facility that we started in Toronto, we had 4 incubator kitchens, shared use kitchens. You would come in and you would use the equipment that was in those kitchens to begin your business. But then your business grows. And so let's take an example. You're manufacturing chocolate chip cookies. All right. So you start out with a little scoop and you're scooping out the dough into a cookie sheet. You're sticking the cookie sheet in an oven, it bakes. Then you take the cookies out, you cool them down, and you put them in a package and you sell them. But your business starts to grow and you can't do that forever. So now you're going to need a depositor that deposits the dough onto the cookie sheets. And you're going to need a baking tunnel that bakes it on a consistent basis all the way through to the end of that tunnel, that passes through a cooling chamber and goes into a packaging machine. Those pieces of equipment are very specific to your operation. So you would go out and you would purchase those individual pieces of equipment and put them in an accelerator unit that is still food grade, that's designed for food production, but it has your equipment in there. You can access it 24/7. You lock it up, you close it, you walk away for the day, you come back the next day. You're still getting the advantages of using shared use facility like coolers and freezers and loading docks and pest control and waste management, etc. But you're in your own individual space. So there's a value proposition to consider. Food incubators and commercial kitchens have the same goal, but provide different services. So a commercial kitchen will provide you with some of the same services that a food incubator will, but it won't give you the business services. It's just a kitchen that you're renting by the hour. You go in, you use the kitchen, and you take your products. You can't store your products in the space, so you'll have to take them with you. You'll have to bring in your your starting goods, your raw materials, and take out your finished goods. You won't be allowed to leave any equipment within that space. Business incubation makes it much more easy for companies to survive the first few years of operation. 80 to 70% of businesses that graduate from an incubator are still in business within 5 years, versus 50% that aren't in business after 5 years if you're not using an incubator facility. Some food incubators have social mandates attached to them. The company that in the picture that below is a food incubator called La Cocina in San Francisco. It's specifically dedicated to low income and underrepresented individuals, primarily from the Latino community in San Francisco. And it's primarily geared to women-owned businesses. And food incubation programs drive economic growth, and that's why governments are sponsors of many of these incubators. And lately, I would say within the last 6 or 7 years, a lot of large multinationals are also getting involved in the sponsorship of incubators. Why? Because they understand that the innovation of products comes from the startup community. It does not come from the large multinationals. And they want to know what's happening with these new companies that are starting up. How are they developing their products? What types of products are becoming new in the marketplace? Say, like vegetable protein products. That started out individual companies, and now it's spread, and it's a worldwide phenomenon that's primarily dominated by the large multinational operations. So let me give you a little bit of a history of the incubation, the food incubator in Toronto. We opened up the food incubator under the name of the Toronto Food Business Incubator. That was in roughly 2007. It was in a 2,000 square foot pilot facility. It was a converted commercial kitchen. It was a cafe actually in an industrial area, and the cafe closed down. And we leased the facility. We took out the chairs and the tables. We had the kitchen that was still there. We had a little walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer. We had some storage area in the back, and companies would come in and rent the facility by the hour. What we found out in the initial month of operation is that companies came in and they didn't know what to do first, right? They were still developing their products. So if they spent 8 hours in the kitchen and they were charged, say, I don't know, $30 an hour, they were paying $240, and they didn't think they were getting anything for it because their products that they were producing, they weren't ready for sale. So we went back to the drawing board and we developed programming to supplement the hourly rate. So you could pay a monthly fee and get the assistance as well as the access to the kitchen. Once we did that, the place filled up. And we had, at maximum, we had 15 companies working out of the facility. We had 28 businesses in total that came in. 15 of them successfully commercialized their products and moved out into their own space or into co-packing spaces. The total revenues of those 15 companies exceeded over $1 million, and they created about 125 incremental jobs. So if you go back to my original comment about creating one job in the industry, creates about $120,000 of GDP, then take that $120,000 and multiply it by 125 jobs, you're seeing that a small investment by the city of Toronto created a huge amount of GDP for the city, the province, and for the country. So it was a very successful pilot project. We ran it for 3 years. The issue was we couldn't grow it any bigger because we only had that 2,000 square foot space. And actually, it was hard for the companies to graduate because they could only raise their production to such a point. There wasn't enough space for them to increase their production larger than that. So we decided we needed to increase the facility. That wasn't easy to find. It took us roughly from 2012 to 2015 to find the right space, to raise enough capital within the city to purchase equipment. We leveraged the money that the city put in and got some funding from the federal government. And we opened up a 20,000 square foot facility that had 4 commercial kitchens in it, not 1, but 4, had a whole commercial bakery facility. And then we created that next stage, those accelerator units. And the facility, we converted 7 coolers that were in this facility into 7 accelerators. And we renamed the program Food Starter, and started to develop larger programming and larger businesses in this space. In the first 2 years that Food Starter operated, we put 1,000 people through our tours within the facility. We had 300 clients we served through training in the facility, and also using the kitchen on and off basis. Some companies used it on a daily basis. Some companies only needed it once a month. Some companies only came in once every 2 months. And we were servicing businesses from as far away as London, Ontario, to the west, and to the east. We were servicing, some companies were coming in from Kingston. They would come in the morning, do their production, take their finished goods back out, and operate that way. 37% of the clients achieved distribution in 50 or plus stores. 18% of the clients experienced at least a 75% year-over-year revenue growth. And now we created incrementally over 500 additional jobs for the industry. But we had other issues at Food Starter. As the business grew, it required more and more cash flow, just like any business that grows dramatically. And the cash flow, unfortunately, was only coming from the city of Toronto. We hadn't been able to attract any private sector investors, and we hadn't been able to attract additional federal and provincial funding for the facility. So, so we made a decision in 2019 to put out an RFQ for people who were interested in taking over the Food Starter facility. It went out to 4 companies that bid on it, and eventually was taken over by a company called District Ventures out of Calgary that has an accelerator program out of Calgary and needed the kitchen space and took over it, and it's now referred to as District Ventures Kitchen. So that's the history of the incubator in the city of Toronto. So now I'm going to go through a couple of comparisons between what I refer to as bootstrapping. So if you want to do this on your own, as compared to doing it through an incubator. So you can bootstrap, you can try it on your own to start a business. You'll have to work out of a commercial kitchen that you may rent by the hour, or set up your own space that can be inspected by a local public health agency. You will be responsible for all the costs, including but not limited to waste management, pest control, storage, your electrical bill, your water bill, your logistics, everything will be your responsibility to pay. You will have access to your own space whenever you wish to produce. That's a benefit. You can follow your own rules, although there are certain rules you have to follow, like labeling and health rules, public health rules. But you know, you can try to bend those rules. When you're in an incubator, you have very, very specific guidelines that you must use. You have to clean up after yourself. You have to leave the space the same way it was when you took it over. Those are things that you have to do within an incubator. You'll have control over your maintenance issues that arise in the facility. If something breaks down, you can repair it right away, or you can wait till you have the money to repair it. You will be responsible for storage equipment, coolers, freezers, ambient storage. You'll not have to worry about sharing this, but you will have to worry about maintaining those spaces. If you work out of an incubator, it can either be municipally inspected, provincially inspected, or federally inspected. The incubators in Toronto were municipally inspected. There are federally inspected incubators. There's an incubator or an incubator style out of Leduc that does meat production. They are federally inspected. Your incubator fees include waste management, pest control, storage, utilities, and logistics. But you're limited to production times. You have to book your production time well in advance. If a client orders a large order, you have to hope that you can find production time in the incubator to be able to produce it. You have to follow all the rules that are set up by the incubator staff, and you have no control over the maintenance issues that come about. So you're depending upon that particular incubator to fix the things that are broken so that you can operate the next day. You will have to figure this out for yourself when it comes to programming, because if you're bootstrapping, there's nobody to ask. You will need to build your own team of advisors, outside experts that might help you develop your business or your product. Without industry experience, it's difficult to know what you need to do. A good incubator facility will have progressive programming at every stage. So when you start up, you need to know this. But then when you grow your business, you need to know, how do I access financing? How do I bring in a partner into my operation that can take me to that next level? Those are things you'll have to find out on your own. Working in an incubator, you may be able to get access to that. Attendance at industry events and shows. We took part in SIAL. We took part in Restaurant Canada's show. We took part as a city entity, and then we subsidized the spaces for our clients that were working at a food starter to come in and display their products. So instead of paying $2,500 for a booth for one company, they were taking a smaller portion of a booth, but they were only charged $700, $800 for that show. And being a part of an incubator, it gets you advantages to shared use facilities, comes with, sharing your sales. You have to let the incubator know how your business is growing. Most incubators don't, and we did not do a great job at FoodStarter of tracking our clients, but we should have. And you should share the information, because that's the only way an incubator can help you to grow your business, if you share with them how your business is doing. So, an incubator approach. Properly operated food and beverage incubator will have programming at every stage of your business. You will report at each stage of the curriculum on a regular basis, ensures that you're getting the right assistance. Prior to joining an incubator, you should ensure that you are given a full course outline of what is being offered at every stage. Ask a lot of questions before you join an incubator. Find out how they move the people through the incubator. How long are you able to stay in the incubator? a lot of companies stay way longer than they should. And it's comfortable because they get the help they need, and the facility, they become used to the equipment and the facility, but it's not good for your business. Believe me, it's not good for your business. Your business needs to get pushed and to be able to grow to the next level. Most successful incubators, whether food and beverage or not, are usually aligned with an academic institution. Find out what advice an academic institution can give you. Perhaps they have students that come in who are looking to get entrepreneurial exposure. So they may be able to help you, and you may be able to help them learn what an entrepreneur has to know when they get into business. And you need to know that there's an exit strategy and what timelines there are, so that you can make sure that you grow your business properly and that you leave when it's time to leave. And that's pretty much the presentation that I had for you today. I'm open to take questions as to you know, the different aspects of an incubator and accelerator, what to look for, and even if you're I don't know who's on the line, but if you're another jurisdiction, whether you're looking to start an incubator, what to look for when you start one up.
Michael, I'm here. Don't worry. I'm going to ask the questions. And I have 3 questions already for you. And that was obviously a very interesting topic. And I put some stats on the note. And I'm very impressed by the fact that startups are thriving more. I mean, I'm not impressed, but the statistics like the 87 of the startups managing to last at least 5 years instead of 50% if they don't use incubators. It's a great stat. It shows that it's the way maybe to follow to make sure that your project should be successful. So that's a great stat. I have 3 questions from the audience. So hello, what is your source for the statistics of the $120,000 of GDP per job created in the food industry?
The city of Toronto we have a statistical department, but that would probably come from StatsCan. The stat that they put out, and that's updated to me on a regular basis. I'm not quite sure what the $2,007 equates to, but yeah, it's a stat from Statistics Canada.
Okay. Second question. Sorry. What percentage of the operation budget of the incubator is supported by the city of Toronto?
What percentage?
Yes.
Okay, so when we ran the original pilot project, we got the pilot project up to, when I'm saying we, the city of Toronto never owned or ran any of the incubators that we assisted. The Toronto Food Business Incubator, we helped launch, but it was run and managed by an independent board of directors, primarily from the industry. And the same thing with Food Starter. We funded Food Starter, we helped it to get going, but it was managed and run by an independent board of directors, a not-for-profit board of directors. And so the answer to your question was, with the pilot project, they were able to get the pilot project up to 65% self-sufficiency. So what do I mean by that? The clients were paying for 65% of the overhead and the management of the pilot project. And the city was funding the other 35% through our incubator grant program. And we had another program called EdSIP that we had provided funding for. So the city for the pilot project, the city was providing funding of approximately $75,000 a year, and the remainder was being paid for by the clients. And the goal, obviously, is to get it up to 100% self-sufficiency. No incubator wants to depend on government or any was that we didn't have the space to bring in extra clients. It was limited to the space. With Food Starter, again, because of the growth of it, and the fact that they kept coming back to the city for the first Food Starter operated for from 2000. It didn't actually begin to operate till about 2018, I believe. So we operated for 2 years, and the growth was tremendous, and the city kept putting in more and more dollars to keep it going. So we never really got, I think they got up to about 30% funding from the clients, and the city was providing most of the other funding for it.
Good, that's interesting, obviously. And I have a third question. What was the cost to food processors to use the incubator in Toronto?
So to use the pilot facility, they paid. It was I'm trying to remember now. They paid something like $1,500 for 6 months of use with the program attached to it. Okay, so
Okay.
and they had up to 40 hours a week of use of the kitchen. Most of them never used 40 hours of the kitchen because they were just starting out. With the Food Starter facility, there was it was programming. So you entered. We had a program called Market Feasibility Boot Camp. I think the program ran for 12 weeks, and you pay $1,200. And in those 12 weeks, you got the ability to take courses in marketing, product development, food safety, how to operate commercial food grade equipment. It's one thing to be able to operate, make something in a kitchen of your house. It's quite another thing to operate it on a commercial level. And that's something I deal with companies all the time. They call me and they say, "Oh, I have a recipe for such and such," and I'm said to them, "Well, is it a commercial recipe?" And they say, "No, I make it in my house." Sometimes it's not even possible to make it on a commercial level. So they paid $1,200 for the Market Feasibility Bootcamp, and then the next stage was, if they qualified, they got a $5,000 grant to operate their business for the next 6 months as well. And the rates on an hourly basis went from approximately $20 an hour to use the kitchen up to anywhere to $30 to $35. And it all depended upon time of day and the day that you were asking to use the facility. So, it was open 24/7. If you wanted to use the facility from midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning, it was obviously less expensive than if you wanted to use it prime time between 9 and 4 or 9 and 5.
Good. That's I think that was the last question. Michael, that was a great presentation. I would like to thank you again for your commitment in the SIAL Canada show, and I hope that we will work again next year in Toronto to build a startup village that we have done in 2019. And I would like to re-thank you again for that. For the one who would like to see this conference again, I remind everyone that this conference will be available on our YouTube channel and on our virtual show in the replay conferences section in the menu. Thanks everyone for your time, and thanks for supporting our show. Have a great virtual visit. There is only one left. Bye.
Thank you.